But now it's asked a parliamentary committee to look at whether an emissions trading scheme is in fact the best way to go at all. And Craig, I know you are chairing this committee. So tell us, is it a foregone conclusion that your committee will just say, yes, an emissions trading scheme is the way to go?
Well, look, the government's committed to a cap and trade scheme, and that's what the whole white paper process was about. But it would be terribly unusual, David, if the Economics Committee didn't look at the major issues that are facing the economy, and clearly this is one of them. And we'll be looking at this issue, and we'll be reporting back before the issue comes before Parliament in terms of the legislation. But the government's
isn't it a waste of time if you're already committed to this policy?
Well, we're looking at the broad picture in terms of what's the best way forward in terms of this. But the government's position is clear that we've gone through a process. We've had a green and white paper out there. There's been a great deal of consultation in terms of this particular issue, and the government is committed to the cap and trade model.
OK, but just clarify for me, as the chair of the committee, are you open to anything but the carbon pollution reduction scheme the government has announced? Well,
we're looking broadly at that scheme and viewing it in context of some of the criticisms that have been put out in relation to that.
So you're open to other ideas?
Well, it's a committee report, of course.
I'm not sure if, Craig, you know whether you're Arthur or Martha.
Of course we are. I mean, we'll be taking submissions from a variety of groups, and we'll be listening to what they say.
So you have an open mind on whether this is the right way to go?
Well, the government has a position which has gone through a process in relation to this. We are looking at the broader issue, not the specifics of the particular legislation that's there. And the committee will be listening very broadly to what the community and the interest groups want to say.
Broadly speaking, on the broader issue, is an emissions trading scheme the right way to go?
Well, we believe it is, and we believe it's the best way to go in terms of this as a government. And
so why do you need to hear any evidence?
Well, if the Economics Committee always looks at the big, broad economic issues, it would be highly unusual for an issue such as this to pass by without the House Economics Committee having a look at it and having a review of it.
So this is just process for the sake of process?
Well, it's not just for the sake of process. There may well be some views and ideas that are put up there that are of some value, and we'll look at those views and ideas. But the government is committed...
So it is open to change then? It is open to change?
Well, no, the government's committed to a cap and trade scheme, and that's what the previous processes we've gone through with the Green and White Paper have been about. But the Economics Committee, in terms of looking at the big economic issues, of course will look at this particular issue and hear what other people have to say.
All right. Michael Johnston, you used the words Arthur or Martha there in relation to the government. What about your own position? I want to play to you here some of Malcolm Turnbull's comments yesterday. He, of course, in government, supported an emissions trading scheme. Yesterday opened the door, though, to a carbon tax instead.
They both have their merits. Our policy in government was for an emissions trading scheme, much better designed than that proposed by the Labor government, much less complex, much more cost effective. But we are seeking and obtaining our own advice on the economic impact of the Rudd government's ETS. But as I say, it's something of a moving target, because not only have they not presented the legislation that they're proposing to introduce, but they're obviously also reviewing and reconsidering their decision by referring it to the House Economics Committee.
Michael Johnston, which is it? A carbon tax or an emissions trading scheme? Which is the best way to go?
Look, I mean, Malcolm Turnbull said that when we were in government we favoured an ETS, but quite frankly, the government of the day is the Rudd government, and quite clearly what Craig is not able to say is that during a very sad week in the Parliament last week, a motion was moved that his committee look at this ETS proposal. I mean, I'm not sure whether the...
Well, we've been through that. I'm just wondering about your position. Surely this debate's been around and around and around. You must have an idea yourself now. A carbon tax or an emissions trading scheme?
Look, Malcolm Turnbull just said that we favour an ETS, and we're going through that. I mean, remember that we are not the government. We are the opposition, and it's our job to scrutinise what the government's put forward. But they seem to be putting all kinds of things forward at all kinds of times. They've been in office now for more than 12 months. They really should get their act together and put to the Australian people what they said and what they promised at the last election.
So you'll sit on the fence until then?
Precisely what we're doing, David.
Well, we're not the government. I mean, our job is to be constructive and to look at legislation that comes forward. Legislation hasn't even come before the Parliament yet, and this was a central policy commitment, a non-negotiable of the Rudd campaign back in 2007, and we're now 14, 15 months into his term, and we've seen absolutely nothing.
Yeah, but you didn't sit on the fence with the economic stimulus package before the legislation was introduced, and you made it fairly clear which way you'd go on that. I'm just wondering, now we have a white paper which has extraordinary detail on this carbon pollution reduction scheme. Why can't you tell us where you stand on this?
Well, no, we've expressed our reservations, and Malcolm Turnbull's put forward other suggestions. The bottom line is that we're not the government, David, and the government has a mandate from the people to carry out its commitment, which it put to the Australian people, and it has failed miserably to do so 14, 15 months into their term.
All right, we're going to have to take a quick break here on AM Agenda. We'll come back to you gentlemen both shortly with more on the issues of Afghanistan and also what Peter Costello is up to. Stay with us.